Hey everyone, we're diving deep into something pretty important today. Um, Contingent faculty positions in higher ed.
Yeah.
You're here because you're interested in all that. And we have a really great article, actually,
Oh, yeah.
that not only talks about what these positions are, but how to, like, really make the most of them.
I think it's vital that we all understand these positions. They're a huge, cheap part of the higher education landscape,
Hmm.
and they're both big challenges and some really cool opportunities that come with them.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's start with the basics.
Sure.
What exactly are contingent faculty positions?
Well, it's not just one thing, right? You're talking about a whole bunch of different roles.
Okay.
Adjuncts, lecturers, even postdocs can fall under this umbrella.
I see.
The thing that ties them all together is that they're not on the tenure track.
So temporary, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
They can be for just one semester or maybe stretch out for a couple years.
It's really interesting how common these roles have become, like
Mm.
everywhere in universities. Yeah, it's something a lot of our listeners are probably thinking about, maybe even dealing with right now.
I bet.
And the article we're looking at today goes way beyond just definitions,
Oh, for sure.
It gets into the, I guess, the nitty-gritty of how to actually navigate these positions.
Yeah.
One thing that really jumped out at me was this idea of contingent faculty being in a liminal space.
Oh, yeah, that's so key. Contingent faculty can kind of find themselves on the edge of things in a department. Sometimes they don't even have their own office, you know?
Right.
You might miss out on important information or just like not be in the loop, and that can make you feel really isolated.
Like you're not really a part of the department.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like showing up at a party where you don't know anyone.
And nobody wants to talk to you.
Exactly.
Okay.
The good news is that this article has some smart tips for dealing with that feeling of isolation.
Oh, good.
It says you got to be proactive, reach out to colleagues, go to departmental events, even if it feels kind of weird at first.
Put yourself out there a bit.
Yes, you got to own your experience and make those connections.
Because it'd be so easy to just, like, blend into the background.
Especially if you're not sure how long you'll even be there.
Yeah, for sure. But building a sense of community, even if it's temporary.
That can make a huge difference.
And speaking of making a difference, I mean, even in a temporary position, networking is super valuable, right?
It is. Building relationships now can open up so many possibilities down the road.
Absolutely. And that actually leads perfectly into this idea of using the resources that are available to you.
Yeah.
Because there are often way more than people think.
Oh, yeah, way more.
Yeah.
We're talking about resources from the university itself, like professional development programs. Sometimes there are grants, or even help with things like your syllabus, or having someone observe your teaching.
Right.
And then there are external resources too, like joining professional organizations in your field, or finding support networks for contingent faculty specifically.
Those are out there. I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people just assume these resources aren't for them, and they totally miss out.
That's a shame.
One organization I always tell people about is the AAUP, the American Association of University Professors.
Oh, right.
They've got tons of information and support for contingent faculty.
That's great. I feel like we could do a whole deep dive just on the AAUP.
We probably could, huh?
Maybe another time. But sticking with this article, there's something else that really resonated with me. It's about being professional
Yeah.
and doing great work, even though you're in a temporary role.
That's so important.
Yeah. The article makes this point that how much value you bring to the table shouldn't depend on how long your contract is.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Doing your best work, building a good reputation, all that matters,
It does. It really does.
regardless of whether you're there for 1 semester or 3 years.
And while we're talking about that, it's also important to acknowledge that there are often some tough emotional challenges that come with these positions.
Oh, totally.
Yeah. The article talks about the stigma that can be attached to contingent faculty
Like you're not a real professor.
and the fact that it can be a real grind, which can be demoralizing.
Yeah, the uncertainty can be hard.
The not knowing what's next, the feeling that you're not truly valued when you're on these short-term contracts.
Totally. It can be hard to stay positive when you're dealing with all that.
It's a real issue. And to be honest, a lot of it comes from how the system is set up.
It's bigger than just one person's experience.
Right. But it's crucial to remember your worth.
Yeah.
Like your own worth as an educator, as a scholar.
Mm-hmm.
You have valuable skills and experience, and your work matters to the academic community.
You're contributing something important.
You are. Don't let the system make you feel otherwise.
That's such a good reminder.
It is. It's easy to get caught up in the stress of contingent work and forget all that.
Yeah, speaking of stress, one thing that the article talks about is having clear goals
That's it.
and like where you actually want to end up. And then thinking about how you're going to reach those goals, even while you're juggling all the demands of a contingent position.
Yeah, because those demands can be a lot.
Oh, for sure.
The article mentions heavy teaching loads, hardly any time for research.
Oh, yeah. All the
And
application.
then always having to apply for your next job.
Right. How do you even find the time and energy to think about your own goals with all that going on?
You have to be realistic about your goals and what you can actually prioritize.
So true.
Maybe right now your focus is on getting good teaching experience,
Yeah,
Or maybe you start thinking about different career options, ones that might fit your long-term goals better.
makes sense.
The key is to find what feels right for you, a path that matches what you believe in and what you want for your future.
It sounds like you need to be even more strategic in a contingent position than maybe on a tenure track.
Yeah, laser focused on what you want to achieve.
And that brings us to some really important advice from the article. Contingency planning. Having a backup plan.
Or 2. Or 3. Because things in academia can change so fast.
It's true.
Like funding can disappear overnight, enrollment can drop, you just never know.
So you got to be prepared for anything.
Exactly. It's not about being negative.
It's about being realistic.
And flexible.
That's key.
And honestly, that goes hand in hand with the last bit of advice from the article. Be honest with yourself about what you're willing to do.
And what you're not willing to do.
Yeah, academia can be really tough, and sometimes you have to make hard choices.
It's true.
And it's okay to step back, reevaluate, maybe talk to some mentors,
Yes. Get advice and make decisions that put your well-being first.
So important. This has already been such a great conversation. I think we've covered so much ground about contingent faculty positions.
We have.
What they are, what makes them tough, and some really good strategies for not just getting by, but thriving. We've talked about community, using resources, keeping it professional, and being realistic about goals and having those backup plans. And remembering that you have value no matter what.
Exactly. This article really is full of useful advice.
It is.
What do you think is the most important takeaway? What should our listeners really focus on?
That's a tough one. It's all so good. But I think that idea of being proactive, it really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
It's so easy to feel alone in these positions, But the article is saying, hey, you can take control, build those connections, create a sense of belonging, even in a temporary spot.
Instead of waiting for someone to invite you in, you build your own space.
Yeah, and invite other people to join you. It's a powerful way to change your whole perspective.
And that can actually spread, right? It's not just about you. It's about the whole department.
Absolutely. When contingent faculty feel like they belong and are supported.
Everyone benefits.
Exactly.
And that actually brings us to something else that's really important. The article doesn't shy away from it. The systemic challenges that contingent faculty face.
We got to talk about that.
The stigma and the grind.
Yeah, it's real, and it's often tied to bigger problems in higher ed itself.
Like the fact that universities rely so much on contingent faculty.
And they don't always give them the job security and fair pay that comes with more permanent positions.
It's a complicated problem, that's for sure.
But I think this article does a good job of doing 2 things at once.
Okay.
It gives people tools to deal with these challenges, and it encourages us to fight for changes that'll make the system better for everyone.
More equitable and sustainable.
Exactly.
It's a good reminder that our value as educators, as scholars, it's not tied to what kind of contract we have.
It's about knowing your worth.
And not letting the system define you.
Right.
I think this deep dive has shown just how important it is to understand contingent faculty positions.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple label.
There's a lot going on there.
Unique challenges and opportunities.
And it's something that deserves our attention and our support.
For sure. Contingent faculty are a huge part of why higher education even works. Okay, so to our listener out there, if you're thinking about a contingent faculty position, or you're in one right now, you're not alone.
Not at all.
There's support out there for you. And there are ways to not just survive, but to really thrive.
And remember, your work has value. You have value.
No matter what your job title says.
Exactly.
And that, I think, is a perfect way to move towards some final thoughts about all this. As we wrap up, one thing that's really sticking with me is the future of contingent faculty.
Oh, wow.
That's a big question.
What do you see happening?
I don't have a crystal ball or anything.
Me neither, but it does feel like we're at a turning point, right?
Maybe.
Like the current system It's not working in the long run, not for the faculty and not for the universities either.
Yeah, it's gotten so normal for universities to rely on contingent faculty.
It's almost like they can't function without them.
It's true, but it comes at a price.
It does.
Huh.
For job security, fair pay, and even the quality of education that students get.
Right, because if faculties are overworked and underpaid,
It's going to affect their teaching and their research.
it has to.
Yeah. So the big question is, how do we create a system that's sustainable and fair for all faculty? Whether they're on the tenure track or not, that's something we all need to be thinking about and talking about.
That's a really thought-provoking question.
It is. It's almost like a whole other deep dive waiting to happen.
It really is.
But for now, I think it's a great question for our listeners to ponder.
Yeah.
What changes do you want to see? What can we ECH do to make academia more just and equitable?
Perfect place to pause our conversation for today. I think we've explored so much about navigating contingent faculty positions,
I think so too.
but we've also touched on the bigger picture, the need for change. It's been a lot to think about, and I hope you, our listener, feel more informed and more ready to make your own way in this world. But before we sign off, we want to make sure you know where to go if you're interested in exploring these positions.
You bet.
If you're ready to actually start looking for contingent faculty jobs, a great place to start is academicjobs.com.
Yes. They have a huge list of open positions, all different kinds of institutions and disciplines.
It's a really great resource for anyone thinking about this path.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And I think what's cool is this article doesn't just lay out the problems, right?
No, not at all.
It really gives you a way to think about finding those opportunities.
Yeah, it's all about taking charge,
Yeah.
you know, even when the system can feel kind of rigid.
Right, yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive into contingent faculty positions, hope everyone listening feels more ready, like they can navigate this part of academia.
I hope so too. This is something we need to be talking about more
Yeah,
openly and honestly.
absolutely. And hopefully things change so that it's fairer for everyone involved in higher ed.
Fingers crossed.
Okay, so one last reminder. If you're thinking about a contingent faculty position and want to see what's out there, academicjobs.com is a great place to start.
They have tons of listings. It's definitely worth checking out.
It is. And as always, the learning doesn't stop here.
No,
Keep asking those questions, keep learning, and let's keep pushing for a better, more equitable academic world.
couldn't have said it better myself. Well, that's a wrap for this deep dive.
It is. Okay, sounds good. We'll catch you all next time for another exciting topic. Until then, keep those brains buzzing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really has been a journey. And I hope for our listener, it's demystified some of this,
I hope so too.
made it all a bit clearer.
Yeah.
So they feel like, okay, if this is something I want to explore, I have a better sense of what I'm getting into.
Right.
And speaking of exploring,
Yes.
one last time, if you're out there and you are interested in contingent faculty positions, academicjobs.com. That's the place to go.
It is. They have so many listings, it's a great starting point.
Yeah, for real.
It really is.
And as always, this is just the beginning.
Of the conversation, for
Well,
sure.
we've laid out some things to think about, but the learning doesn't stop here. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Keep asking questions. Keep digging deeper.
And let's all keep working towards a more equitable, just academic world for everyone.
Couldn't agree more. That's the goal, right?
It is. Well, I think that's a wrap on this deep dive. We'll catch you all next time for another fascinating topic. Until then, keep those brains buzzing.